one.
One. All right. It is April 19th, 2019. I'm Micah Sargent, and right now we are going to talk about foldable phones, Apple and Qualcomm, more from iOS 13, Apple and its environmental friendliness, moving your smart home, and so much more, because this is the iMore Show. Joining...
That reminds me of when Terry Gross, one of my favorite radio personalities for many years, would have a very iconic way of, "This is fresh air." So you have your new catchphrase for how you say, "This is the iMore Show."
This is the iMore Show.
I like it.
Joining me, not us, this week, because if I say us, then there's no one to talk about. Joining me this week is Lori Gill. How you doing, Lori?
I'm doing good. I'm starting to worry about all of your lawyers, because it seems like they're all colluding with each other to keep you from talking to each other. Before I know it, I'm going to be the only one on the iMore Show.
Yeah. It is another holiday in Canada. I think they have so there are 365 days in a year. I think they have 400 holidays in Canada every year. And so Renee and Georgia are not able to join us today. But Lori and I are here to talk about the fun stuff that's been going on. And up first is a tiny little news story. No big deal. It's about the Galaxy Fold. This is Samsung's take on the future of smartphones. It is a phone that folds out into a tablet, or a tablet that folds down into a chocolate bar, depending on how you look at it. A very thick chocolate bar, mind you. So lots of calories in that there chocolate bar. But you get it, you open it up, and it comes with, some plastic wrapping over it. You peel back that plastic wrapping, the phone's inside. You use it for a little while, then, oh, whoa, I could see there's another layer of plastic covering over the screen, and I didn't peel that off. Better start to peel that off. You peel that one off, and suddenly your screen isn't working. Wah, wah, wah. What the heck's going on here, Lori G?
Well, first, let's just talk about the foldable phone for just a moment, and how it's kind of cool. It's, I'm into it. I think it seems fun. It doesn't seem exactly like moving us forward in terms of productivity and usefulness, but it seems fun, like a fun new thing that maybe someday all phone makers will have. I think just the idea of it is exciting. It seems very futuristic. And Samsung is one of the first companies to come up with a foldable phone at all, and is the first company to actually release a foldable phone. It's actually not coming out, I think, until April 26th to the general public. But just a couple of days ago, they released it to reviewers so that they could have their chance to play around with it and review it. And without even talking about the handful of there are not very many out there on the market. There might be a couple dozen. I don't remember the exact numbers, but there's not a lot of them out there. And without even talking about the I would argue large percent, considering how many are out there in the wild of, or at least maybe not large, maybe I'm exaggerating. It's 4 that are confirmed that have seen issues. But there might even be more that have smaller issues or something like that. But so considering that, I think that Samsung has failed. They have failed to launch a usable foldable phone. And even without the big issues, Android Central managing editor, Daniel Bader, though he has no significant issues with his phone, has said that within the first couple of days that he's had reviewing it, doing nothing but simply opening and shutting his phone, which is what you're supposed to do with the Galaxy Fold, he's noticed that the crease that's in the middle of the phone has gotten more noticeable. And this is to be expected. That's kind of part of what this phone is going to do. It's made out of plastic. You can't not have a crease in it. But he's noticed the crease has increased significantly just in the short time he's at it. So imagine having a phone for 2 years and how that plastic crease that gets folded and unfolded and folded and unfolded is going to look like. But The four that we know confirmed have had serious issues with their phone. Of those four, two of them did peel off a portion of the screen that was not intended to be peeled off. They were told in their press
Like briefing,
briefing,
email, discussion,
yeah,
yeah.
that they should not be removing that, which um, two of them either weren't at that press briefing or just weren't paying attention and were too excited to get the phone, because I would be too, and went ahead and pulled off what looked like just an additional screen protector for the phone. It doesn't seem like something that any one of us wouldn't have accidentally done, because I think, though it's on there real tight and real strong, it does have something that you would want to kind of pick and scratch at. You feel
Mhm,
it, you see it, you think this is a screen protector, and you rip it off. And the
mhm,
two that had their screen, that they actually ripped off the screen protector that's not supposed to be ripped off, their displays just completely went berserk and just
mhm,
were totally unusable because of the lack of that little cover on there. Just ruined the display of the phone. And there were also two people, one person who did not remove a screen at all, and his phone saw significant flicker, a really bad flicker. We don't have any information as to what caused that flicker, but without doing any physical damage to it, he had this very bad problem with the display. And then the fourth person, he ended up having the tiniest little divot right in the crease, which he says he did nothing that would have caused some sort of grain of sand or tiny bit of debris to get under the phone. Nothing different than what you or I would do on a daily basis. He wasn't purposefully overusing it, or throwing it around, or doing anything that might cause that damage on accident, or with intended purpose. All he did was just use it normally, and there's this little divot right in the crease that's caused a big bubble on the display. And his argument in this case is that maybe a little piece of something got under it, but that's basically made his display messed up. And Rene Ricci, in his video where he talks about this, did comment on that's not entirely unlike the problem that we're having with the MacBook keyboard, which
mhm.
is debris getting under the keyboard and causing the keys to be messed up. And yeah, you can kind of relate that. This idea that there was something that came out to the public that it should have been better protected before it was released to the public. So I can see that argument there. But I do have a MacBook Pro with the keyboard issue, which I still haven't taken in to get fixed it with Apple Care.
Really?
I know I need to do it. I just haven't done it yet. It's just I don't want to let go of my Mac for long enough to have it fixed. That's why
Oh,
I keep
gotcha.
holding off. But I can still use the keyboard. It's annoying. It bothers me. I have to erase and fix. But it's not what I'm looking at. So it doesn't disrupt me as much as this idea that there's this flaw right there on my screen. I don't know if you've ever seen, every once in a while, somebody will get an iPhone. A friend of mine did get an iPhone that had a busted pixel,
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
they're
A dead
very,
pixel
very
on the screen.
small. You don't even really notice them unless your screen has a lot of dark on it, a lot of black on it. And just that's not even, you don't even feel that. But you see that, and like all you can do is just look at this massive hole in
Yeah,
your phone.
it
And
seems bigger. I mean, it's that's the thing, is that it's the difference between something being the window into the experience versus being a way to like a separate way to interact with that window. And so the keyboard is that separate way. You can still see and do all of those things. Becomes a minor annoyance. But when this thing is the thing that you are looking at and interacting with directly, then of course it seems a lot bigger. My iPad Pro, it's the 10.5-inch iPad Pro that I've had now since the 10.5-inch iPad Pro came out. And I don't know what happened, but at some point, either there was too much pressure on one area, or I don't know what it is, but there's an area on my screen, and it's kind of shaped like an oval, and it's just like 3 nits brighter than the rest of the display. And I can only see it in certain times, like when I'm scrolling through stuff and when I'm like zooming out and in. But every time I see that, it's like, ah, it makes me so sad. And I don't know how it happened. I don't know, what I did. And so, like, yeah, even a dead pixel can completely ruin the experience. You pick it out. This is, I peel off this protective coating and my phone literally does not work. Phone that I spent $2,000 on, mind you. This is
Mhm.
a big, 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 big problem. And I don't see how what Samsung said, oh, we're just going to make very sure that everybody knows they're not supposed to peel off this coating. I don't see how that's going to really solve the problem, because folks are bending their phone a normal way, like Daniel Bader, and the crease is increasing, as Lori said earlier. I don't know if the pun was intended, but I liked it. And so by the time you get to like a month in, now the phone has this like divider line down the middle that it didn't have before, and that completely ruins the experience of having this thing that folds out. So I just Joanna Stern, I didn't get a chance to finish it, but I started to read her write up this morning, and she's like, I'm not doing a review of this phone because you're treating us like beta testers. And I was like,
Yes. Yes.
ding, that is such
Yes.
a perfect way to put it.
It
She is right. And it feels like customers who buy this phone are also going to be beta testers. And that's not how a product should be working.
Well, if that is the case, it should be made clear that this is a beta version of a phone, and we're going to let you. It's sort of like, was it Microsoft VR glasses that were sold only as a beta? So this, you went into it, maybe you were developers or you were in the industry somehow, and you went into it knowing there's going to be a lot of things wrong with it, but I'm going to be one of the people that use this in the wild so that I can tell the company what they can perfect, so that next time they, when they put out the final iteration, it'll be better. So if they were presenting this in as like, this is a beta, it's really expensive, only developers or tech people should probably buy this, the average person should probably stay away from this for now, then it would have been presented that way, and reviewers would have kind of had this like lowered expectation that there's going to be a lot of flaws in this first iteration, but we're here to help the company figure out how to make it better. But they didn't. They presented it as a full working final version that the average person, my mom, if she was so inclined to spend $2,000 on a smartphone, which she wouldn't, but if she were, she would go buy that phone thinking that this was something that will last her for 5 years or something like that.
Yeah.
And it
I mean,
doesn't
that's
sound
a
like
lot
that's
of
going to be the case.
it's a huge investment. And so, yeah, you would expect it tends to be that you get what you pay for is, a universal thought. And so one would think the more money I spend on a thing, the more likely that it's going to be, within certain give and take, it's going to last a long time. And that's why like Microsoft with the HoloLens has done
Thank you, the
developer
HoloLens.
previews, has done that's what we should be doing. That's what they should be doing, I think, in this way. And I don't understand why, because they also didn't they brag about how much testing they did of this device and how it was tested more than other phones that come out. I can't remember.
Right, but yes, but the problem that comes with that is this inside testing, because then you get to that point where you are experienced enough to know, for example, not to peel the screen off. So how many times did they test it when with somebody ripping off that plastic protector? They clearly weren't doing enough testing on that, because they would have known that immediately the moment you rip it off. I mean, I guess they did, because they have a disclaimer that you're not supposed to rip it off, but that there needs to be people who have no idea what they're doing testing these things out to show, like, even if you have a big disclaimer right on the front, don't peel off the plastic cover. If someone's going to peel off the plastic cover, it's just going to happen. Although maybe they predicted that some reviewers would rip the cover off, the plastic protector off, because they wanted a big they wanted everyone to know what happens when you do it so
Oh.
that they could make sure that it's well known enough once people buy it that they better not rip it off. So maybe it
I
was
hate that idea.
I mean, it's just a conspiracy thought, but maybe they kind of knew that somebody was going to rip it off and they wanted that to happen to,
Yeah.
maybe.
That I mean, so I hate that idea for them. I don't hate that. Like I think it's a good idea that you. It's a good conspiracy to think of, but it makes me sad. I'm like, no, I don't want that to be what they're doing.
So I think when it comes to this particular issue with the screen protector that can actually be removed, I think the problem they had, why did they put a screen on that could be peeled off at all? That seems almost like an aftermarket issue, as if when they made the original phone they thought that it would be good enough but realized that the display itself needed more protection, so they, after the phone was already assembled, they just like made something to slap on top of it. I think that they could have easily just used like better molding machines to like sort of melt, if you will, the protective case to smooth it out on the edges so that it didn't feel like there was an extra protective layer on there. I think that's exactly what went wrong with the people who peeled off that secondary screen protector, is that, and we're calling it a screen protector because it is a piece of plastic that protects the display. It's
Yes,
not a screen protector in the sense of like what you
an
would go,
aftermarket screen
right, go,
protector.
it's not something you would go buy on Amazon and slap on your screen, which by the way, I believe I read that in some of their information, with with the product, it will come as that you're not supposed to use the screen protector on it. You're not supposed to use the screen protector
Yeah,
on your
yeah,
screen
you can't
protector.
exactly. You cannot put a screen protector on it because if you do, then it can cause issues with the adhesives can cause issues with the screen protector that's already on there. But I want to double down on what you just said. I had the sort of that same exact thought. This is like when a company realizes that when a food company realizes that when their food came from the batch manufacturer, it has 5% more protein in it than what was originally reported, so they have to take a new nutrition label sticker and put it over the top of the former nutrition label. This feels like one of those situations where in testing they realized that they needed to add more protection onto the screen, so they added the screen protector, when what they should have done was add this extra layer, add 2 extra layers, add 3 extra layers, but make it so that it's flush with the rest of the display and then put the rest of the casing on top of it. No one sees that there's something peelable, and then you don't have that issue in the first place.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's like, I think the biggest issue here is we have been trained to see that peely bit and want to peel away that bit that's peelable. And it doesn't, ultimately there is some funny haha to us hearing like, oh, that was in the briefing, and oh, it was on some of the packaging apparently. And we get to have a little chuckle about that. But at the end of the day, we have to keep in mind human behavioral like actions,
Yep.
and you need to make it more explicitly clear, and also keep in mind the fact that there are going to be plenty of people who just simply don't read directions
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
And that because of that, then you have to have a plan in place. And so if you only had 24 devices to seed, and you know that you're going to have however many pre-orders available, are you going to have enough extra devices when people inevitably peel the screen that you need to replace because they cost $2,000? Or are you going to tell them that the warranty is ruined if you decide to peel off that protector, which is also not good
Mm.
business? You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
there's so much about this that is concerning to me because I don't know how they're going to handle it in terms of uh, of doing right by their customers
Yeah, you're
and
so right. I didn't
partnering.
even think about the issue with, if you peel it off, are they gonna tell you your warranty is null and void because you peeled it off, even though it was the company's sort of design error that it exists at all? Yeah. Yeah.
Not a good
Because that
look.
really seems unfair.
Yeah, I mean it's not pretty.
It is not pretty.
um so I hope that they're gonna keep that in mind on what they're gonna do there. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, the phone launches in just a couple, I think it's the 26th, but it's definitely by the end of April for sure. And at that point, we'll know for sure how many sales. I don't think it's going to sell a lot because I think even before the issues that came about with the reviewers, I don't think a lot of people are ready to spend that kind of money on a phone. There's going to be a handful of early adopters and a handful of people who like that sort of status. And I get that that will buy it, but it's not going to be, Samsung's big flagship seller. So, but I want to see how that comes out. I want to see, what just the average person thinks of this phone, and I want to know how after a month of use or a year of use, what that crease inside looks like, how bad it gets, and
Yes, that's what I'm most curious about, to be honest.
yeah, and whether or not Samsung has like something in place to replace the plastic protector officially once that crease starts to go bad. If they were saying like, the use case for a screen is 6 months, so every 6 months we'll replace that
Ah,
plastic protector for free, and it'll be like a brand new phone. Well, yeah, for $2,000, I would like to be able to do something like that. Is that something that they're going to offer, knowing that that crease is going to become such a flaw on the screen? I
yeah,
don't know.
that makes it more understandable and potentially something worth investing in for sure. And we kind of have talked about that before with when the Apple Watch first came out, when we were kind of talking about the upgrade cycle for the Apple Watch and what that was going to entail. And they just ended up getting rid of the $10 billion Apple Watch so that there wasn't that concern in the first place.
Hmm.
I would like to point out Walner Mercado in the chat, and apologies if I mispronounced your name there. He and his brother have 10.5-inch iPad Pros that are having the same issue that mine does, with the brightness of the screen being an issue. And he posted on Imager photos of him and his brother's screens having that area of brightness. So it could be a thing that potentially Apple is tracking. So I'm thinking now that I might reach out to, because I think it's out of warranty by this point. But I think I might reach out to Apple and see if that's not something they could fix, because they've had enough reports of it. So interesting. I'm definitely going to have to ask around and see if others with 10.5-inch iPad Pros have seen this area of lightness. And that's
Yeah.
another thing too. Speaking of just sort of like tech working and not working and going wrong and not going wrong, it's kind of tough when you feel like you kind of exist. Oh, and Richard Del Franco says he has the same issue with a 10.5-inch iPad Pro. Interesting.
Very interesting. Doesn't it make you feel a little bit better knowing that other people are experiencing it, though, knowing that it's not just you, that you didn't do something terribly wrong, but that
Yes.
others are experiencing it?
And that's the thing that I'm sort of hammering home here, is that a lot of times when we have these issues, we feel sort of like it's just our own thing, and so we sort of let it go, we let it slide, we're like, this is just something that I've done, and you go on. And it's worth looking into, basically, is what I'm saying. And so while we're talking about sort of phones breaking and things like that, one hopes that folks won't get this, because there are going to be some people who can drop $2,000 on a phone and not think about it. And so they might hear about this through, I don't know, one of those stocks shows, like business shows, and they're like, oh, I want that thing. And so they have their assistant buy it for them or whatever. And they might not ever, they're just like, oh, well, I guess just get me a new one because I broke this one. And it's, when I think about, that is one example. The other example is just someone who thinks that, everything going wrong with technology is because they are dumb or they don't understand it or whatever. And a lot of times it's not what, like, we can blame ourselves, I think, for things that don't end up being our fault and sort of let them go. And so
Yeah.
it's always worth looking into if you can, is the lesson that I'm kind of taking away from this for
I
sure,
think
that I
what you're
didn't know.
saying is that I need to take my MacBook Pro in to get it fixed.
That too. Yes, exactly. Yes.
It's been like this for at least 6 months.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Yeah.
I get the double I and the double T. Those are that's my keyboard
And so you
flaw.
just delete them automatically.
I
But
should set up like some sort of like
Yeah, you could do a text
A text
expander
expander.
snippet. Yeah, easily. It's
That's
like
not
it's
a bad idea.
yeah, and it's better than developing muscle memory for always just automatically deleting one because then whenever you get it fixed, then you're going to still be hitting that delete key to remove one of those eyes or
Yeah.
keys.
Well,
Um,
that's the frustrating part, and not to get off on the keyboard tangent because I mean that's a baby that's been washed enough times. But the frustrating thing is it's not every time. So I like setting up a text
oh,
expander actually wouldn't work because it wouldn't always double I or double T. It happens intermittently. Sometimes it'll be every time I type it, and sometimes for a couple of days it won't happen. So it's even
uh,
more frustrating.
yeah, that's not fun. Not fun
No,
at all.
I know. I'll get it fixed. I promise.
I'm gonna add in the Wix after the show
Okay.
because I'm having trouble downloading the talking points for some reason. So
Okay.
that's fun. So let's go ahead and move on to talk about Apple and Qualcomm. Um, it's over.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry. I just
it's
like it's over?
it's over. I mean, you never know, really. But Qualcomm and Apple have announced that they've agreed to drop all litigation. This is direct from Apple. Agreement ends all ongoing litigation, including with Apple's contract manufacturers. Companies have reached a global patent license agreement and a chipset supply agreement. The settlement includes a payment from Apple to Qualcomm, and it's a 6-year license agreement as of April Fool's Day of 2019 and a 2-year option to extend, as well as a multi-year chipset supply agreement. No one's saying it seems what the thing is. That was probably part of the settlement, is that they didn't say how much Apple is paying. Uh, so I wonder, like, are the royalties going to be less? What? Oh, I'm so curious about the details.
I think this is so when it was first like I was following the trial. So, I think it was like Friday they were saying that Monday is, day one they're going to start picking the jury, and then on Monday they picked the jury, and Tuesday morning I was like getting ready for it. Okay, they're going to start the trial, and this is probably going to be a 6-week thing, and we're going to follow it every day. And just, oh, no, no, never mind. We're good. We figured it out, which is good. That's what should be happening, and I approve of the settlement. I approve that companies try to have a settlement instead of like dragging things through in court. That's never a good thing. The best thing to do is to find agreements. But I said this before on MacBreak Weekly. I kind of wanted to participate in this. I wanted to see what was going to happen because on both sides, it's a big deal what the claims that they were making. On Apple's side, they're saying that Qualcomm is unreasonably charging too much and basically double charging. And Qualcomm, on the other hand, is saying that Apple is trying to sort of force them into exclusively making chips for them, which makes it difficult for them to make money. So, like, on both sides, we're seeing like, yeah, this needs to be fixed, not just for these two companies, but for all companies,
Mm-hmm.
And then the sort of agreement that we don't know what the agreement was, it left me so just hollow that that there was no like resolve. It felt like an unresolved, like a goodbye at a breakup that you didn't know why you broke up. You just that person just is
What
like,
happened?
bye, had a good time, bye. So it still feels weird. There's lots of speculation as to why they came to the final agreement, which obviously a lot of it would have had to do with the cost of going to trial and company secrets that would have ended up having to have been exposed at that
Yeah.
point. I completely understand wanting to keep as much private as possible. So I just, you know, I mean, it was like 2 years ago that this started, and so it was culminating to this moment, and we didn't really get our resolve.
Yeah, yeah, it does. It's that build up and then bam.
Yep.
It's sort of like I guess it would be kind of like climbing that first hill on the roller coaster, and then you get to the hill, and instead of it going down, it's just straight across.
Yep.
It's like, what? I waited this whole time for this rush, and there's no rush.
Yeah. Yep.
It's at the end of the day, I hope that it means Apple is paying less than they were And because of that, it means, I mean, because that's kind of what this whole thing has been about, right? It's Qualcomm wanting a bunch of money and royalties on every single device and all this other stuff. And Apple was like, we really don't think that we're going to want to pay that. So let's figure this out. And I hope that this means that, less of those funds have to go toward the royalties, and that in the end it just makes for either a less expensive iPhone, which no, that's not going to be the case. So a same priced iPhone, but now they can apply more of the funds toward research and development and components and things like that. And so there's a little bit more shake around that they have. There's a little bit more room that they have for these devices, um, because as it stands, there was that sort of markup included for the money that Apple has to pay for every single device to Qualcomm for these modems. Weird.
Yeah. So then, secondary to that, the very next day, maybe later that same day,
I think it was even later
um,
that same day. Mm-hmm.
Intel announced that it's not going to be making 5G modems. It had been in the process of trying to do that, and Apple had been working with them to try to get that going. So from here on out, I'm going to be saying a lot of like conjecture and speculation. This is nothing that any information that we have official. This is just sort of my opinion as to some of the things going on.
Maybe you should like put one of those voice filters on.
And I know something black and to
Yeah,
cover my
cover
face.
your,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I just because of all of this, because of Intel's announcement, frankly, um, what I'm seeing coming forward is that um, there are already phones on the market that have 5G modems in them, and Apple does not have a 5G modem yet. They were intending to do so this year, um, and at the very latest next year. This is not a big deal. Apple has been late to the next G version market. They tend to wait until there's a broader amount of coverage, so
Right.
they can push off a little bit longer. For Apple, it's not as big of a deal to be the first to market, but to be participating in the market once it's finally ready for everyone. So presumably, Apple was trying to find different suppliers for this 5G modem, and Intel did not long ago. I don't know exactly how long ago, but I think about a couple months ago, announced that they were working on the 5G modem and that they could get it done, but they were speculating that they weren't going to have it ready for market until 2021, which the assumption is that 5G is going to be widespread by the end of 2020. So that would mean that Apple would be a year late to the game of the widespread 5G market, which would put them at a huge disadvantage. So in this circumstance, it's almost like they felt that their hands were tied in this situation. And again, this is complete speculation. We don't know why Apple made this decision, but I can see the company kind of in this position where they could lose millions of dollars by not being on 5G in 2020, whereas they could lose a little bit of money per, which actually does kind of turn out to be millions, on paying a little bit extra for these modems from Qualcomm that they didn't want to pay. I can see as a business trying to figure out the best means, the best way to do this, and it could significantly lower Apple's brand and the way people kind of think of them if they couldn't get to 5G in a timely manner.
Yeah.
And just going with Qualcomm, who is already making 5G chips, or Qualcomm chips are already in a lot of, not a lot, but a handful of phones that are already on the market. So it was the better decision for them to stick with Qualcomm in this circumstance. But at the same time, what was that expense to them? How much did they have to give up in order to make that agreement with them?
Hmm. Yeah, I hadn't considered sort of, going that deep into it. And I I like the idea. I think at the end of the day, Apple's choice, as we're noting, they don't tend to do those new sorts of, be it Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or uh, cellular connectivity. They wait until that infrastructure is in place, and that makes sense to me because from a customer point of view, if you're going to try to like hype that you have this thing, then you want your customers to be able to use it in most places. Otherwise, you're losing money to support calls and things like that when folks aren't able to access those things, or even just like losing money to uh, mistrust because of perceived dishonesty about these things. And so I like that perspective and that sort of mindset about making sure that the tech they're hyping is ready and is not a foldable screen that breaks upon touching, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like it's something that's been tested and made sure that it's in place. So I think that that's good. And then there's also the fact that Apple has a lot of phones in a lot of hands, and so you want to make sure that that 5G infrastructure is well in place to handle all of those phones connecting using 5G. So, yeah.
Yeah, imagine if it was, Christmas 2020, right? And all of these other phone companies were like, "We got 5G, Apple doesn't." Like that's such a marketing thing to always compare yourself to Apple, which of course it's because Apple makes the best phones. I just said it, come at me. Apple
Yeah.
makes the best phones. um, so if it's Christmas 2020 and Apple's still on 4G and all these other companies are on 5G, even some of the second and third tier companies can say that they're better than Apple just by using that as a marketing ploy. So yeah, it makes sense that they wanted to make sure that they could get to a market. I think they're also working with, is it MediaTek, to get 5G modems. So I think that's still going on. So I think that this contract that they have, or this agreement that they have with Qualcomm, is not exclusive, which could also benefit Apple in the future if there are other tech companies that can manage to get a good, solid, reliable 5G modem out. They could, they could work with both or work with multiple companies and not rely so much on Qualcomm. And then maybe after that 6-year agreement is up, they can, decide again what they want to do, whether or not they want to, continue to work with them, but ask them to reduce their prices. Or again, we don't know. Maybe Qualcomm did reduce their prices. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know the details.
Yeah.
And we probably will only ever have speculation and sources close to the person, close to the person, close to the person. Let's talk about more from iOS 13. Yerme Rambo over at 9 to 5 Mac has been hitting us each day with new bits of news from both Mac OS and iOS. And lately, we've seen some new features for iOS 13 that are supposed to be happening. Laura, do you want to share some of those fun things that have been revealed?
Yes. First, can I just say how much I love Yerme's stuff? He's always unwrapping things that just get you. I feel like it's like 2002 all over again, and we're getting excited about things that it's more than rumor, but it's not. It's still not in like it's official. It's stuff that he's unwrapping in beta coding and stuff like that, and it's just been so much fun to read his tweets and read what he's talking about.
Did you see today's? I didn't see today's until just now.
I didn't. I haven't had a chance. What is he saying today?
Siri shortcuts, screen time, and other iOS features are coming to the Mac. Siri
That's so
shortcuts on the
great.
Mac. That's wonderful. I've been wanting that so much.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. Yep. See, so many exciting things that and in one sense it's sort of spoiling the secret, but in another sense these aren't things that aren't definitively coming.
Right.
He's finding them in coding, which means that they exist, but Apple might just pull them. They might change their mind and decide that they're not ready for them, which, by the way, is a couple of the things that were expected to come out in iOS 12 did not make it to iOS 12, which are now being talked about as coming to iOS 13. There's so many things, but some of the a quick thing that I can run down the list is that supposedly again, these are not official things. They are still within that rumor realm, even though they're pretty solid just because they've been discovered in the coding of the betas. Um, dark mode for iOS hopefully is finally here in iOS 13.
If it
Um,
doesn't come by this point, people are just going to say, "What the heck?"
I
It's
know at this point
been
it's
rumored for
almost
so
not
long.
even an issue anymore. We don't even care anymore. But I what I like about this idea before I go into the other features that are coming in iOS 13 with dark mode, we've already seen other companies, other software, Android, making dark mode for their software for their mobile software. And it seems to be a little bit on the disappointing side that there are when it comes from a design perspective, it could have been done a lot better. And one thing that we do know about Apple is that it prides itself on its well designed looking things. So I'm excited about what potentially dark mode could be for iOS, not just a dark skin that goes over everything, which will be nice, but all of the little things that go along with that, like the slight changes to the icons that are on your screen, or the fonts maybe dulling or brightening more, or something
Hmm.
like that. The little details that get left out of when you don't have like a super great design aesthetic. I think Apple can kind of really perfect that in their dark mode to come, and maybe there'll even be options for different colored things. To you might even be able to like change the color of your highlights or something like that, which would
Yeah,
be really fun.
sort of like how it is on macOS, where the
Exactly.
colors
Yeah.
shift. Yeah, they're not
Yeah.
exactly the same.
And dynamic wallpaper, the dynamic wallpaper on Mac that changes depending on the time of day is so much fun for me. I can be working on my Mac, and depending on the time of the year, whether it's 5 or 8:30,
Yeah,
as the sun goes down outside, my screen will actually shift color, and I can see it. I'll be sitting here in front of my computer, and my background will shift color, and it's such a neat little thing that just happens automatically that I have so much fun with it. I would love to see something like that on iOS if they could do. They do dynamic wallpaper, so if they could
hmm.
do an automatically changing of the shifting of the day and night,
Ooh, fun.
it'd be pretty fun. It would be pretty cool, and even automatic day to night shift for the entire theme, not just for a dynamic wallpaper, but if the entire screen could dynamically change to night mode
Sort of
at
like
a
how they do on
specific time.
tvOS.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That could be really fun on iOS too. Really just a pleasant experience that you wouldn't even have to think about, that it would just happen automatically. You'd pick your phone up at noon and it would be white, and you'd pick your phone up at 9 p.m. and it would be dark. It'd be fun. And I don't know what's expected with dark mode for iOS, but there's lots of fun things that could go with it.
Yeah.
Some other features that are supposed to be coming to iOS, font management, with an actual font picker that you can select yourself, which I believe is rumored to have something to do with Adobe on iOS, Adobe apps on iOS. That will make it easier for you to, let's say you're opening a file on your iOS device, and your phone doesn't support a particular font. It'll allow you to, a notification will pop up to allow you to pick that font and go into the settings and add that font to your system. This isn't something where you're just going to, change everything to Comic Sans all over your system. What it will do, it'll allow the phone to read the particular font that particular document came in, instead of it just switching over to a currently existing font on your phone
Yeah,
or iPad.
that's a I feel a very that's like a small market feature, but it's nice to have. I use typefaces on iOS all the time, and just use the ones that kind of come with the system or that certain apps bring to the table. And so, but there are some that I really like that I can only use if I'm on my Mac, and so that will be nice to have. But I think that the like my mom's probably not concerned about having a font picker on iOS, but
Right.
regardless of that, it is fun. And I'm excited about having that feature for sure.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's one of those little things that you're just glad it's getting added, even if it's not going to be, the big thing that you hear about for months to come.
They're finally
Um,
changing the volume head-up display. So now instead of being this honking rectangle, like Squircle rather, in the middle of the screen, it's going to be somewhere else. Hopefully, just like a nice little, kind of like what Instagram does. I don't know if you've ever adjusted the volume in Instagram, but it's just up in the little horn, and you can see the volume change there. So I'm hoping that it won't be that big thing in the middle of the screen. A change to the undo gesture. I'm a little sad about this because this is the undo gesture was like the last whimsical thing about iOS.
yeah.
And so and a lot of people, they talk about like, I never have ever used that. I didn't even know it existed. I use this all the time. I do that all the time.
Yeah.
However, as an accessibility consideration, it is something that I'm glad there's going to be a new gesture for undoing. If it's still an option for me to shake to undo, please let me keep that. I love shaking to undo. I
I
love it.
think for the exact reason that you said, I don't think that it's going to be undo is the gesture to undo and redo in iOS 13. If it ends up there if in the final build, you tap and swipe to the left, or tap and swipe to the right to
Swipe to
undo
the
or
right.
redo. And so
Swipe to the
just for
right.
just what you're saying, oh yes, we need a song. But for
Everybody stop.
just what you're saying, I think Apple is going to keep the ability to use shake to undo or redo, because there are going to be people that don't have the kind of finger dexterity to get that swipe, that tap and swipe with three fingers. So the shake to undo or redo could be the option that you would choose instead. So I would assume that they're going to have both. Or if they don't have shake to undo, that there is going to be another accessibility way to achieve the action to undo or redo. So, but I think they'll just keep it because it's there. So they could just add something.
Yeah, add on top, don't remove. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Find my iPhone and Find My Friends are going to be revamped. So you'll be able to find your friends and your devices all in one app. And then apparently Apple is they're working on Sherlocking Tile. So you can have little tags that you can attach. This is a really cool idea. And this is why. So right now, Tile, the super cool thing about Tile is that you're you join a network of folks who have tile trackers. So when you buy a tile and you have the app, then everybody in the world who has a tile tracker becomes a part of your network without, giving, it's not like giving direct location access or anything like that to all these different people, but putting a GPS chip into something is far more expensive than using Bluetooth LE in these devices. So when you put something in lost mode, people who have tile trackers around the world you can use those to help zero in on whatever missing item you have. But the problem is your network is only as big as the tile customer base is. If Apple does this and they don't just use the tags, but they use iOS devices to serve as the network, holy moly, nothing will ever be lost ever again. That's incredible. I
Yeah.
need this. I want this. I love this. And we know that Apple will do it in a way that better protects our privacy than even the systems that are out there now.
Yep.
My
Yeah.
dog can go missing and I can find my doggie with the new Apple app. What?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, yes, like the potential behind this is incredible and amazing, and could, like, I mean, I don't want to go crazy with it, but it could save lives, I
Yeah.
think, you know?
Yeah, if you put on your kid's backpack, or like if it's like a charm you could put on their shoe, tie it on their shoe or whatever,
Hmm.
or a bracelet or a necklace, whatever. And Apple, with Apple Watch, we've seen how they can be fashionable. So if this tag is like an option for a little bit of more fashion merchandising kind of thing, or even like an Apple Watch band that has I'm just like going wild with this
I
idea.
know.
I think it's a really cool thing. And it's because of whatever it was that Oprah said about like in a billion pockets, y'all, or whatever.
Yeah.
That's what makes this so awesome, is that network that exists out there is so big that it's going to be hey, hold on, that it's going to be great. Okay, never mind. I thought somebody in the chat was complaining about Shake to Undo and was saying it was the worst thing ever. And I was like, no, you don't understand me. You don't understand. But they were talking about Shake to
Shake to
Shuffle,
shuffle. Oh
which is
yeah,
kind of like
remember
cute. Da-da,
that?
da, da-da, shake to shuffle. But anyway, so I'm really excited about that, if you can't tell. And I
Yeah.
hope to hope that it comes like this time around and that it's not something, further on down the line, because I don't want to wait for it. I don't know.
There's a couple other sort of productivity things that are supposedly coming only to iPad that sound really fun, like the um, multi-select, multi-touch, multi-select. So right now, you can grab multiple things at once by, honestly, I don't remember exactly how the feature works because I don't use it because it's a little bit complicated. I think when you hold down one item, like an icon, like an app icon, you can then tap a bunch of other icons so that you're selecting them all at the same time and then drag them into one folder. And I think there's going to be some improvements to that, along with some sortable. It's I'm still kind of working on what this is all about, but this multi-window side by side where you can drag sheets into
Yeah, this is confusing.
stackable cards that will sort of even be sort of shadowed so that you'll know the card on top is the most recently used one. I can't actually quite visualize it in my mind, so I'm still struggling with exactly what this means. But it's definitely an improvement in multitasking on iOS, on iPad specifically. Probably maybe not even something like iPad mini, but maybe only the larger screened iPads. We'll see for sure. I don't know. But right now, sort of multitask windows on iOS for iPad, it's a little clunky. It's not great. They're working on it. It's better than I've seen in other mobile operating systems, but it's still not very intuitive compared to what we do on our computers. So I like that Apple is trying to get into a better place with that. I think one of the things that I hear people complain about the most with iPad is that they want their iPad to function as a computer the way they're comfortable and familiar with functioning as a computer. And I think tabs and multiple windows and stackable windows sheets is a step in the right direction because that's what we do right now. I have 4 windows open on my computer, and that I can't do that on an
Right.
iPad. I can make things be side by side. I can slide something out so that I can pick an app, but I can't just have windows just randomly open all over the place. And I think that when people have that complaint about not about the functionality of the iPad not being as good as it is on a computer, I think that's one of their complaints is that sort of usability of just throwing windows all over the place and getting to them, clicking on them to making them come out front and stuff. So I think we're kind of slowly heading in that direction.
Yeah. One of the things that I wanted to quickly touch on, this is not for iOS, but for another for macOS that has me excited, is something that I've wanted, frankly, for a while, is Apple Watch authentication being used for more than just unlocking your Mac in macOS. So right now, if you have an Apple Watch, you can go into your system preferences on the Mac and you can choose to unlock your Mac with your Apple Watch. And for folks who don't have that set up, basically, as you approach your Mac and you wake it from sleep or what have you, open up the lid or whatever it is that you do, you feel a little tap on your wrist and it tells you I'm unlocking your Mac. Your Mac becomes unlocked because the idea is that when you put on your Apple Watch and you typed in your passcode, you authenticated that you are indeed yourself. And the moment you remove your watch, it deauthenticates. And so then you have to type in your password on your Mac. So as long as it stays on your wrist, it knows you're still you. No one else has put on your watch. And then you can get that authentication. But as a person who, has an old school MacBook Pro Retina display. So right before they came out with the ones that have the touch bar and the fingerprint sensor, or Touch ID, and also as someone who most of the time uses their Mac in clamshell mode with a Bluetooth keyboard and trackpad and mouse, I don't have access to Touch ID to do authentication on my Mac. And I find myself all the time. 1Password allows you to use Touch ID to unlock 1Password. I find myself all the time wishing that I'd have to type in my long password on 1Password. So Apple Pay is another way you can use your Apple Watch. If you do Apple Pay online in Safari, you get a little buzz on your wrist and you double tap the side button to go ahead and unlock to go through with the payment. So the rumor is that Apple Watch authentication is going to be coming to more in Mac, and it's unclear what exactly that means. But what I hope it means is that third-party developers will gain access to being able to auth with your Apple Watch, and that I won't have to type in my password anymore. Or at the very least, Safari passwords, I don't have to type in my password. I can just use my Apple Watch as my means of authentication.
Even just Safari passwords would be a huge benefit.
Huge step forward.
Yeah.
And I want to note, if Rene Ritchie were here, this is kind of a big thing that he's been talking about for some time now. The future is ambient authentication. And what that means is, as you're going about your day, your different devices are noticing your walk gait, which apparently is just as, if not more unique than your fingerprint, noticing your heart rate, which is also a unique thing per individual, going and getting your fingerprint, using your face to see Face ID, and then with your watch so there's always sort of something authenticating and making sure you're still you. And by doing that, it makes everything more secure and at the same time more convenient, because it's less necessity to type in our passwords, but more times that we're getting checked to make sure we are us. If we had to every 5 minutes type in our password in everything, we'd either make our password super short, or we wouldn't use passwords, or we'd be complaining about it. But if our devices are automatically every 5 minutes just like checking, okay, that person is still who I think it is, then that obviously is increasing security, because it means that someone else hasn't sat down in between the time periods where we have to type in our password and has suddenly taken control of our devices or what have you. So with Apple Watch being expanded, this is just more opportunities for that ambient auth becoming a thing. And I love that idea so much.
Yeah, definitely. I do love, there are definitely so many times when passwords become a barrier to your convenience, and it's very, you and I obviously, we have our strong passwords all over the place, and we use password management apps to help us keep those very strong passwords. I keep thinking of my mom, who actually now finally does use 1Password. Mom, if you're listening, I'm so proud of you. It took me years to get her to do it, but she did finally get 1Password and does actually use it.
That's so wonderful.
Yeah. And but she's still bad at repeat passwords, and so even though they're stored in 1Password now, I know that she has a couple of places in her life where she's using repeating passwords, and having one more convenient step to protecting her password by using some sort of biometric authentication will help her feel more confident that she can create really complex passwords and not worry about whether or not she's going to forget them or have trouble accessing them from her password management or something like that. So I look forward to this for all the people in the world who find passwords to be an inconvenient burden and wish that they didn't have them, because we need them to protect ourselves, and it would help them to feel less burdened by passwords.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are just about out of time. Do you want to do a quick either Apple environment or Harry Potter Unite?
Well, we can do both. Apple released their environmental responsibility report, and just a quick rundown of that. I can go through this very fast, because
Perfect.
they have a section that's actually their little highlight section that makes it easy for you to just kind of quickly go through, which are They have reduced their carbon emissions by 64% since 2011 and 35% by 2015, since 2015. And that's huge. These tech companies really do negatively affect the environment. And so to see a large company like this working toward reducing emissions is really good. We already heard that 44 Apple suppliers are committed to 100% renewable energy. They haven't done it yet, but this is what they've agreed that they would try to shoot for, hopefully by 2020. They have reduced their aluminum emissions by 45%. They are sourcing 100% renewable energy from electricity in 44 of their facilities. I think, if I remember correctly, that's about 23% of everything that makes things for Apple. So even though they're 100% renewable in their facilities, they're still it's still a small amount, but all of the other things that they're doing, like the supplier chain, is helping toward growing that from 23% to hopefully 100%. And they're still working on reducing their average product energy use by 70%. And they've been saving on energy 41.5 million kilowatt hours. I wanted to just bring this up because Monday is Earth Day, which it was a big deal for me because when I was a kid, it was kind of like that was a big thing, was like celebrating Earth Day, which I don't know if people still do, but it was a big deal when I was a kid. So I wanted to kind of bring it up of like a reminder to us that we are loving our technology, and it really is important that these larger companies are doing something to protect our environment. And I've been watching David Attenborough, Our Planet, which is all about climate change and all about how we as humans are causing this massive destruction on the planet. So when I see these things and I see these big companies, especially Apple, leading the charge and trying to help all the other companies to do the same, it's great. So, we should be asking our companies to be doing this kind of things and providing this kind of transparency to us as well, of not just claiming that you're doing nice things for the environment because of marketing tactics, but also proving to us that you're doing these things to try to help, protect our environment, because right now, especially, we are in a technological future that we've never seen before. And we don't know what kind of destruction this type of productivity is doing to our environment, because we just haven't had it in existence for long enough to know how bad the effects are. So way to go, Apple. Keep it up.
Rock on.
And then one quick thing, the Niantic's Pokemon Go for Harry Potter. You might have heard it called Harry Potter Go. It's actually called Wizards Unite. It's Harry Potter Wizards Unite. It's in beta stages now, and if you live in New Zealand, you can participate in that. So that means it's coming. So I'm going to predict that by early to mid-June, it's going to launch in the United States publicly, not as a beta. That's going to be my prediction. So let's remember this and come back to it around that time and see if it happened.
Chat folks, let's keep that in mind. Early to mid-June is Lori's prediction.
Yep. I will eat a piece of candy if I'm wrong.
You should know. You know what you should do is get some Birdie Bot beans.
Yes.
And then you have to eat like you get to pick like one of the nasty flavors, but you have to eat like the soap one or the booger one or whatever.
Or I have to eat one every day until it comes out.
Oh my God, that's even better.
And so some days it'll be fine, it'll be delicious, and other days it'll be something gross.
I love that. Well, let's keep that in mind, and we'll have to source some Birdie Bot beans in the meantime. Yeah. That's a great idea. So
not the bamboozled ones, though.
What's this going to be?
It is a more advanced version, but basically Pokemon Go for the Harry Potter world.
What do you will collect instead?
Yeah, you actually are looking for what they're calling foundables and confoundables, which are magic items that have escaped the magic world and made their way into the Muggle world. I love it. And so your job is to go out and find all of these artifacts and kind of bring them back into the magic world. So you're not actually, you don't have like your pet that you're walking around with or anything like that, at least not yet. But you are learning spells, and you're actually casting spells against the bad creatures of the world that have also gotten loose. You'll find them in the wild, and you'll have to capture them. You will meet other characters from the Harry Potter universe who will you're sort of collecting them as friends. So, like Hagrid, I think, is in the tutorial part of it that becomes your friend, that you meet up with him. He's trapped in something and you help him escape from it, and kind of have some fun with him going forward. So it's pretty exciting just for fans of Harry Potter stuff. It's on equal playing field as it was for people who are fans of Pokemon Go. I'm not going to say that it will be the phenomenon that Pokemon Go was, but I think it's going to be a really big, huge game for a lot of Harry Potter fans, because those people, I am also a Harry Potter fan, but I was in my 20s when it came out. So there's a lot of people that were kids, little kids, just getting into reading books when the series first launched, that are now full-grown adults with children of their own. So I think this is going to be a big deal for grown-ups and their kids, that they
Yeah,
can
for
expose
sure.
their kids to Harry Potter again, and kind of relive that fun, which is why Pokemon Go was such a big deal, because they were grown-ups experiencing that Pokemon phenomenon that they had as a kid and sharing that with their children too. So
Yeah, it's sweet
yeah,
and
exactly.
fun.
Yeah.
Just like this podcast, sweet and fun. I want to thank everybody out there for listening. Thank you to those of you who have joined us in the chat. Always feel free. We typically record the show on Fridays at, what is it, 1 Eastern? Yes,
Yes.
1 Eastern, noon my time. And so if you want to join us and hang out, we put out a tweet that lets you head over to YouTube and follow along as we record live. I want to, of course, thank Jim Metzendorf for editing the show and making us sound great every week. If Renee Ritchie were here, he'd tell you you could find him on Twitter and other social media places at Renee Ritchie, or you can head to imore.com/vector to check out all the awesome vector stuff that he does. Georgia is at Georgia_Dow on Twitter, or you can head to anxiety-videos.com if you would like to check out some videos to help with emotional intelligence, setting boundaries, depression, anxiety, sleep, etc. Lots of great videos there for all of those things. Lori Gill, if people are looking to get in touch with you, how can they do so?
They can find me at Appaholic on Twitter. That's APPAHOLIK. And they can find me at Lori Gill at most of the other social things. They can find me at iMore, where I'm currently in the process of working on a weekly column where I am highlighting women in tech. So please take a look at that. It's really interesting. A lot of fun for me to get to interview these women.
Very cool. The doorbell has rung, so my dog's just saying hello. But you can find me on most social things at Micah Sargent, or you could head to chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUAHUA.coffee, which has links to all the different things that I do. You can find all of our writing at different times over on imore.com. We'll, of course, be back next week with more and hopefully less barking. I hope that you have, depending on when you're listening to this, a great week or weekend. This has been The iMore Show.
Thank you.
Thank you. And